Hi, everyone. Elizabeth, you want to say hi? Hi. This is Elizabeth, my daughter. My name is Nguyen, and I am a recovering Catholic. Um, I come from a long line of Roman Catholic Vietnamese. I am now an American and no longer practice Catholicism. Growing up in Vietnam, Christianity was often viewed as a foreign influence and a threat to the Vietnamese tradition. In the early 19th century, many Christian Vietnamese were executed as traitors because of their religious tie to the French and Western colonizer. My ancestor must have survived the anti-Christian violence. Although they escaped execution, my great-grandparents had to leave their village after the Geneva Accords of 1954 divided Vietnam along the 17th parallel. They migrated south to avoid secular communist North Vietnam. They left to seek the freedom to practice their Catholic faith. Growing up in South Vietnam after the war was challenging, but my family faith provides solace. I sang in the children's choir and attended Mass almost daily, never skipping church on Sunday or holy days of obligation. As a curious child, I often asked why girls couldn't be altar servers, or why I was overlooked for having my feet washed on Maundy Thursday, despite my achievement. The only explanation I received was, "You are a girl," which left me confused about why girls were seen as less worthy. I have to be fair and say that in the Vietnamese culture, women are expected to be modest and pure, with tradition discouraging physical contact with men, not even a handshake. The decision to exclude girls may have been an attempt by the elders to protect the priests from temptation and safeguard the girls' purity. Regardless, I felt inadequate. After arriving in the United States, I continued to devote myself to the Catholic Church until 2016. Despite the sacrifices made by my ancestor and my lifelong devotion to Catholic faith, I stopped being a Catholic after the 2016 election. After years of never being good enough for a judgmental and sexist ideology of a God, I liberated myself and left the church. I am tired of being told I was not blessed with obedience when I question unjust practices. I'm tired of being encouraged to obey rather than seek understanding. Defying the belief that my only purpose as a woman was to bear children, I face shame and guilt. I love being a mother, yet I want my role as a mother to encompass more than caregiving and housekeeping. I want to advocate and create a better world and a brighter future for my children. I left the church and my faith feeling lost and incomplete. I crave spiritual ritual and community, wishing for my children to grow up in a faith community that offers God's unconditional love. I learned about the Federated Church of Sycamore when Pastor Eric spoke at one of the Black Lives Matter marches at Hopkins Park. Pastor Eric stood in solidarity with Pastor Joe Mitchell of New Hope Church, sharing the history of the Underground Railroad that passed through the Federated Church of Sycamore. I was impressed by the church history and commitment to standing on the right side of history, proclaiming God's love for all. When Roe v. Wade overturned, I invited Pastor Eric and other faith leaders and constitutional law experts to speak on a panel to shed light on the decision and its consequences. As a recovering Catholic up to that point, I have never publicly took a stand on women's reproductive rights. Once again, I was astonished at what Pastor Eric presented as the values of Federated Church and the church view on women's rights and human rights. This time, I told my husband, Ralph, we're going back to church. Just like that, we show up at the Federated Church of Sycamore. We weren't officially member. We were stranger, and you invited us to receive communion. For someone who went to church as many days of my life as I did, not receiving communion for almost 8 years was a chronic pain. To be invited to join you in communion without terms and conditions was a treat. I received communion, and I brought my children up to receive communion. The next day, my 4-year-old daughter, now she's 5, but this was last year, she joyfully told me, Mom, I know God loves me. My heart swelled with joy. I asked, how do you know? She replied, Pastor Eric told me that when he gave me the bread and juice at church. This is why we continue to return to the Federated Church of Sycamore. This church has reignited my hope in my Christian faith. Here, my daughter discovered the profound truth of God's unconditional love. Here, I feel hopeful that God loves me as I am, accepting my doubt and critical thinking ability, inviting me to embrace the faith that stands against exclusion and discrimination. Last year, during Maundy Thursday service, my children washed my feet here at Federated Church of Sycamore. I was overwhelmed with emotion and had a tearful reaction. I was seen in the church for the first time in my life. I was honored as a child of God, despite my gender as a woman. So here we are, continuing to come back to the Federated Church of Sycamore, where I found hope, love, and acceptance, where I found my advocacy for human rights and shine, and where I found a community of care. I remind Pastor Eric almost every Sunday that I'm still searching. I'm still not sure. And at the very beginning of the service, he often would say, it doesn't matter where you are in your journey, you are welcome here. And I'm grateful to be welcome here at the Federated Church of Sycamore. Thank you, everyone.